What is up guys, it's your boy Soul. I'm here, back with another Classic 1 video for Season of Discovery. Now today we're talking about the brand new raid. I have recently done a full 7 out of 7 pug run in this raid, and I picked up some tips and tricks during this pug run that I want to talk about with you guys today, covering like pretty much what you want to know about the raid, the tips and tricks that I have to share with you. And I know there are several guides out there on this raid already, but we haven't really figured out everything, have we? And I just want to share my tips that I picked up during my raid that might help you guys out. I see a bunch of pugs being stuck on 4 or 5 out of 7, and I just want to do my best to help you get the last few bosses. So let's go from the start. At the beginning, you'd want to clear everything in the water before the first boss, because first of all, you have to weaken the defenses of the boss to actually make him active, and also he has a mechanic that makes you want to jump into the water. So basically, just clear everything in the water, activate these swirlies as you can see, and the swirlies will make it so you will have less like underwater breathing, so you have to like move your way up faster, and they will also push you into the water. For the most part, that is a mechanic you don't have to worry about. But let's talk about the boss. The boss will cast a debuff on one player that will expire after just about 5 seconds, so you have a couple of seconds to actually react to find out if you have the debuff, and if you have the debuff, you want to move out. If you're in melee, you don't have to jump in the water, even though you really want to, even though it will be a long walk back. It's not really a DPS fight, so if you want to be like, if you just want to be safe, jump into the water when you have the debuff, and if you're ranged, you can just DPS the boss from the water afterwards, just in case you get the debuff again, right, so you don't have to walk back all the time, because that will be a lot of downtime. If you are melee and you really want to min-max this, you can just tank the boss where he is and move to the edge of the platform with the debuff. Additionally, after that debuff, like once again, the only thing you have to care about with the debuff is going to the water, because he will knock people back. So if you stand in melee, for example, with a debuff and you don't go to the water, he will knock everyone back, including the tanks, which can cause chaos. I will say the first boss is very easy, so even if you fail this mechanic, it's not really a problem, but try to do the mechanic. He will also summon a cloud, a thundering cloud, anywhere, usually on the ranged, which you just have to move from. If you're standing in clouds taking damage, just move. That's it. That's the first boss. For the second boss, he will start off with having a big shield on him. You basically just want the shield to get weakened, that way you can actually damage the boss, so just damage him during the shield and wait for the shield to actually go off. Just keep DPSing and eventually the shield will go off. During the fight where he is shielded and you're damaging him with the shield, he will spawn orbs. These orbs can be soaked slowly if you want to, but you can simply just ignore them. It's more of a DPS check and just killing him before the third wave, which is usually fine. Like even in my second run, we had every DPS doing about 50 to 60 DPS, and we still made the DPS check before the second wave. Now the thing is, on the first one he hits very hard, on the second one he hits even harder, and on the third one you're pretty much dead usually. So you have a lot of time. Even like right now you can see us DPSing him in the first wave. Like we have taken one massive hit and he has been weakened one time, and you can see the boss is already half health, and this is the shield mechanic, and now he will shoot out orbs. For the most part, avoid these orbs, because if you get knocked by one orb, you can get knocked from one orb into another, and if you soak three orbs back to back, you are most likely dead. It depends on the stamina you have, but you're most likely dead. So for the most part, just avoid these orbs. Like if you want to, you can soak them to take less damage here, but as you can see, we're fine. This is the second one, and after this the boss is weakened one more time and you simply kill the boss. So you can see our DPS right here, the rough DPS that we're doing. The thing is though, keep in mind, the boss is weakened, so the DPS right here, like on normal bosses, people do more DPS, the boss is weakened for half the fight, right? So during the weakened phase, he takes, well, he's shielded, I mean, during half the fight. So during the shield phase, he takes less damage, and during the weakened phase, he takes more damage. For the most part, just pump out heals after the blast, right? The raid takes massive damage twice, just pump out heals, and that's all you have to care about. It's pretty much a DPS check, but also a small healer check during that one time where he pumps out that damage, that massive blast. And also, once again, just avoid the orbs, and get your loot, and keep going. Now for the third boss, you're clearing adds around the boss, and don't do like we just did, because we managed to pull the boss while clearing the adds, because they will be like walking away when they're low health, so either execute them really fast or pull them far away from the boss, that way you don't go right from the adds to the boss. So during our fight here, we started with the healers having 50% mana, which is definitely not ideal. For the boss tactics though, he will shoot arrows with like ice on the ground, as you can see. Tank the adds you will get on the ice if possible, otherwise just have an add tank. You have two tanks, right? Have one tank on the boss, one tank on the adds, and the tank on the adds simply tank and spank. If you want to mitigate damage, tank the adds onto the ice patches if possible, while not standing in it yourself. That way the adds will get frozen, but really, one good tank can still keep two adds. So as you can see right now, we have one add, and roughly, it depends on your DPS, but roughly on 30%, it will spawn a second add, which once again, the add tank has to pick up, and that's pretty much the fight. You tank and spank, one tank on the adds, one tank on the boss, avoid the ice as much as possible, because if you're standing on the ice, you will get frozen, which is annoying, but it's still doable. And here you can see, the second add came in, so now the second tank should pick up the second add, and just tank and spank once again, and when possible, just kite the adds onto the ice, or move them away from the raid. Just ignore the adds, focus the boss, and once again, get your loot. Now the first three bosses are very easy, there's pretty much no way to wipe on them really, but on the fourth boss, this is when it starts becoming fun and you have like actual mechanics you have to think about. There are eggs around the room, and every time you kill the boss basically, he will regenerate 3 times, and every time it will spawn murlocs from these eggs walking across the room. You have to individually dodge every single murloc, and I will show this from a ranged perspective while giving some really useful advice as well at the same time, so you can see exactly what's happening when the murlocs spawn. So for the most part, you just DPS the boss right here. Is a tank and spank and pump, right? That's pretty much what we're doing here, and avoid purple circles on the ground. There's not that many purple circles right now, but it will become more and more purple circles every single time he regenerates. So now you can see the murlocs, and there's way more than you might think, and it spawns circles at the same time. So you have to avoid these circles, you have to avoid the murlocs, you will take damage. You can survive 1 or 2 hits, that's fine, but the more hits you take, the more healers you need. For most pugs, I would recommend having 3 healers here, but it's more of a healer fight than a DPS fight, but also in the last phase, you want to burn the boss down quickly, so ideally, you want to have 1 or 2 healers and dodge every single mechanic, but the more mechanics you don't dodge, the more healers you need to mitigate the damage, right? So pugs could use 3 healers here. I think we used 3 healers here, right? And we had 1 dead from now, which is kind of not optimal, but we have enough DPS anyway. So for this one, once again, you tank and spank and avoid the purple things on the ground, and you can see it spawns more purple things now, right? So you just avoid the purple things and you tank and spank. Now for the hot tip here is that when the murloc spawns, they will walk across the room, but if you go to the boss and the altar behind the boss, there is only 1 murloc walking in that place. I'm not sure if this is intended, and it might get fixed, but for now that is a massive tip to help you avoid every single murloc and all the orbs. So if you stand at the boss, like where the boss is, there's an altar behind where you usually clicked to get your buff back in the dungeon time. Just stand there and there's no murlocs. I am still showing you this from the ranged perspective, just so you see how to like try to dodge all of everything. So if you're a ranged or a healer, then this is probably what you want to do, but also you can just move to melee and stand in the safe spot area, right? So you can stand there as well. This boss, once again, very tank and spanky. On the last phase though, he will spawn tentacles from those purple orbs or the purple circles. You want to either pump the boss or you want to focus the tentacles. It really depends on your setup. So you can see right now the tentacles, if they don't get killed in time, they will start channeling Mind Flay. Now I've done 2 runs of this raid. The first raid, as you can see right now, we are focusing the tentacles. Well, I'm not focusing the tentacles, but everyone with instant damage are focusing the tentacles. I'm a Affliction Warlock, so I can't really do much on the tentacles, right? But even the tanks are going out and killing the tentacles. The Ret Paladin is doing massive DPS with tentacles, and Hunters as well are doing massive DPS with tentacles. This will just mitigate raid damage, but it also takes longer to kill the boss, but you will take way less damage. So for most pugs, I would recommend just killing the tentacles really fast and then focus the boss very slowly. But once again, on the second run, we ignored the tentacles, just went for the boss, and that was fine as well. It was a little bit more chaotic, sure, but we got the boss down and we got the loot, and that is basically the entirety of the Murloc boss. Now the next boss will be a gauntlet when you enter the waterfall like we have just done, and when you enter the waterfall you can't walk back out. This is a one-sided wall, so you can't go back out, but it's no problem, you just kill the adds, you move on to the next wave, you kill those adds, move on to the next wave, kill those adds, and then you go for the boss, right? The boss will instantly go for you, so healers, try to save your mana on these adds, and DPS, try to kick the caster as much as you can, focus the caster, keep moving on, right? Every single time you kill a caster, the wave will open up, and you can start wave number 2, and then once again, focus the caster, and get the caster down, kick the caster to mitigate damage, to save the healers some mana. For the boss itself, he will spawn totems. There are 3 totems on this fight. You have the Corrupted Windfury totem, which will make the boss hit way harder, in which case the healers want to focus heal the tanks, and you want to, like if you're a DPS, hard switch the totems. You can't cleave, you can't just like do AoE, hard switch. You also have a Fire totem, which will spawn a fiery ball, as you can see here. This ball will basically follow one player for eternity, or for a long time. Just kite the ball away, it's super easy. Now, what people do here, you have 2 strategies. Number 1, if you have really good DPS, focus every single totem. Number 2, if you're struggling a bit on DPS, leave the fire totem alone. Kiting those balls is very easy, and it gives you more uptime on the boss. And for example, in the first raid here, we actually focused every single totem, and it went fine. In the second raid I was doing on my Feral Druid, we were lacking a bit of DPS, so we didn't focus the fire totem at all. We left the fire totem alone, focused all the other ones, and that might actually be the better strategy for most pugs. So fire totems, leave them alone, kite the fireball around, because it gives you more uptime on the boss, right? And healer mana, like healers will go out of mana eventually, so you want to kill the boss before that happens. The third totem is probably the most important one. He will spawn a Corrupted Lightning totem. This will reflect every single bit of damage you do to the boss, and you will have 1 second to react. So when this totem is dropped, hard switch like literally right off the bat. Be ready to tab target, do whatever. Don't even finish your cast on the boss, because that damage will simply go on you instead. So if you're casting on the boss when he summons the totem, stop your cast. Nobody cares about your DPS. Stop the cast, tab target, and target that Corrupted Lightning totem right off the bat. As I was trying to do there, I did an immolate, which did pretty much 0 damage, but I was trying. Just alt tab. Not alt tab, just tab target, go for the totem right off the bat. If you're in the middle of a burst, this totem can literally one-shot you, like on my Feral Druid. I did 1 mangle, and I got a crit, and it took me down to 10% health. So tab target right away when that totem spawns. It's really important. And now you have done the 5 easiest bosses of the raid. Let's move on to number 6, which is arguably the most like difficult boss in this raid, but there are a couple of ways to cheese the boss as well. So for the 6th boss, you want to have 1 melee camp and 1 ranged camp, and the ranged will move together as a group. Give 1 target like a mark, like I have Star right now. Just give 1 ranged person a mark. Now every ranged will move with this person, and you will move in a half circle around the boss, starting as much to the right as possible, and he will shoot out purple things on the ground. And you can see there are 2 hunters standing in front of the ranged right now, which I'll talk more about later. He will shoot out purple circles to the ground, which you have to dodge. So you will see a purple circle very soon, and when that spawns on the range, like right here, you move slightly to the left, because this will leave an AoE on the ground. And now you move once again slightly to the left, and this thing will keep growing a little bit after it's been spawned, so you just have to keep moving in like a half circle across the raid. And that's like the entire thing you have to care about as a range. Just try to move as stacked as together as possible if you can. Now, why do we have 2 hunters in front of the ranged? Well, there's a dream mechanic. The dream mechanic seems to go either on the 2 closest melee or the 2 closest ranged. Now, we were able to cheese this by choosing who was the closest to the boss. So have 2 melee targets that can deal with the dream be standing like in the boss. Otherwise, the tanks will go into the dream mechanic, which definitely don't want. So have 2 melee characters stand closer to the boss than the tanks are, because once again it's on the closest target. You also have the closest ranged, which is, as you can see right now, both our hunters got slept into the dream, and that's why they are standing slightly in front, because if 2 healers go into the dream, it's pretty much a wipe, especially if you only have 2 healers, because then the tanks will get no healing for 20 seconds. So have 2 hunters stand in front of the ranged as the range range soakers basically for the Dream. Well, 2 hunters, you can have a hunter and a mage. Just make sure there's 2 range that can deal a lot of damage and instant damage. As an Affliction Warlock, the Dream mechanic kinda sucked a little bit, so try to have hunters, mages, boomkins, I don't really know, anything with instant damage and like a burst damage output. You only have to kill like a couple of mobs in there, so it should be fine for the most part, right? Now, as long as you deal with the Dream mechanic correctly, just have 2 ranged soak by standing in front, and have 2 melee standing close to the boss as well. He will enrage at 30%, in which case you simply just want to like spread out as ranged. That's what we did at least. You can also split in 2 camps, that's fine, but spreading out is also more than fine. At this point, it's a tank and spank, you can no longer kick the boss, which is also something I should say for phase 1. Try to kick Mind Blast and Shadow Crash as much as you can. In phase 3, you can't kick those, so simply save your cooldowns if you have any for this phase, burn down the boss, and if you're a healer, spam heal the tanks. The tanks will take so much damage, or whoever he is casting on will take so much damage. If you're a DPS, try to heal yourself while DPSing down the boss, and it's simply a DPS race. So phase 3 is a DPS race. You will see me die very soon with damage over times on the boss, so simply once again, just do damage and pray and hope. So spam heal the tanks, you can't kick anything in this phase, you just have to kill the boss before he kills you, right? So that's the entirety of the 6th boss. It's kinda simple, but kind of hard at the same time. You have to kick the cast. If we go back to phase 1 for a little bit, I want to re-emphasize, because this boss is very, very difficult, and there will be lots of pugs struggling here. So in phase 1, have 2 ranged stand in front of the ranged group as the soakers for the Dream. Ideally 1 hunter and 1 mage, or 2 hunters if you have a 2 hunter setup, which I would recommend, by the way. Having 2 hunters is amazing for the raid. So 2 hunters in front of the ranged, that way you don't get healers into the Dream. If you don't have 2 hunters, just make sure the healers are standing slightly behind everyone else when it comes to the ranged. And have 2 melee be closer to the boss than the tanks are. That way they will get into the Dream as well. And as you can see, the boss is casting, he's currently being silenced. Make sure you're silencing him as often as possible. If you're a ret paladin, you might want to go for rebuke here. If you're a mage, counterspell when you can. If you're a warrior, try to kick. If you're a rogue, try to kick. Basically, kick as many casts as possible. That way he will get locked out. Mind Blast and Shadow Crash deals a lot of damage, so the more casts you kick, the more healing you save, and the more healing you save, the more mana the healers have for phase 3, which is once again when the boss can't be kicked and the healers have to heal a lot. So the more mana they can save, the better you are. So really, phase 1 is a tank and spank plus kick, plus just soaking the Dream mechanic. That's all you have to care about. And as long as you do that correctly, the healers can save a lot of mana for the last phase, which is definitely needed, because now you can no longer kick, he will deal a lot of damage, and the more mana the healers have, the more manageable this phase will be. So let's talk about the last boss. On the last boss, he will use a frontal cone mechanic, which has a really long range, so you don't want to just move back and try to outrange the frontal, you want to move sideways and dodge the frontal. Just think of the frontal as a laser beam, you want to dodge the laser beam, and it has like a pretty wide spread in front as well, so simply just move like to the left or right from the frontal. As long as you dodge that mechanic as a ranged melee or healer, you're fine. That's like all you have to care about, especially in phase 1, dodge those frontals. In phase 1, that frontal will be a green breath, and in phase 2, it will be a purple breath. Just dodge both of them and you're fine. As you can see here, he's doing a frontal, dodge the frontal, otherwise you will get a massive debuff that will last for the entirety of the fight, unless you use one of the water elementals, as you can see the tank is doing right now. Now, the tanks, you will get a debuff that you want to go to the water elemental and cleanse your debuff. As you can see, our tank just did that. He went to the elemental, he cleansed the debuff, and now he's using another frontal, which we are dodging. You keep doing this on repeat, dodge the frontals, cleanse your debuffs at the elemental when you have them. Ranged, DPS, and healers, you should never have a debuff. Dodge the frontals all the time and you will never have a debuff. If you do get one, you can use the water elemental, but once again, you really don't want to. You might see someone in our raid getting one of these every now and then, because once again, this was one of our first pulls on the boss, which we actually got the boss down as well, because it's not really that difficult if you focus and do it correctly and dodge those frontals. Now, you keep doing this until the last phase, so let's get to the last phase and talk about that as well. So at 50%, he will enter a shadow form and gain brand new abilities, including the shadow frontal. You want to dodge the shadow frontal. In addition, he will spawn some adds. In this case, the small adds you want to kill. So you can see the adds being picked up by our bear tank right now, all the way to the right. There's only like 1 or 2 of them, like the small adds. You can focus on small adds or off tank them. That's pretty much up to you. We chose to kill the small adds, but off tank the big adds. There will be more adds spawning very soon, so you can see just about now, very soon, he will spawn more adds. In that phase, you will have 1 tank get those adds, run away with them, and 1 tank tank the boss. After that, it's a literal kill race. You want to kill the boss before your healers go out of mana, or before the off tank dies by having too many adds on him. So off tank grabs the adds, he runs away with those adds, and you just simply pump the boss, right? It's a DPS race. You kill the boss before the boss kills you, and then you grab your loot. It's pretty straightforward on the last boss. You simply just want to dodge the frontals, you want to cleanse your debuffs when you have them, and you want to have a tank that actually picks up the adds. As you can see right now, we have 2 adds that is on our tank, and we're getting a 3rd one right now as well, so we're getting more and more adds. So once again, it's a burn phase. You definitely want to kill him before you have like 4 or 5 adds. At that point, your tank will get chunked down, which also means your healers are going out of mana, so eventually your healers run out of mana, and your tank dies, and you wipe. So it's a DPS phase, a burn phase pretty much. And now you kill your boss and get your loot. The last boss will drop a quest item that will give you the world buff as well. It's the shell that just dropped here, or the pearl, right? So you roll on the pearl, everyone can use the pearl. It drops a DPS trinket for both attack power and the magic damage, and also healing power. So everyone wants to have this pearl, and it drops 1 per raid, so good luck on that one. It gives you a trinket, a really good trinket with attack power, spell power, or healing power, and it also gives you the world buff. Now when you hand it in, it gives the world buff to everyone around you, so you can actually use this in your guild to get more damage on the next try. So simply just need on this one and hope. And that's pretty much the entire raid. That's all the strategies that we picked up during our pug. This was not meant to be like a guide on... I actually got the trinket as well, but the item, I mean, plus the trinket, so it's not really supposed to be a guide, but it should cover the simple tips and tricks and the simple strategies for every single boss in the raid, so hopefully that helps you out. If you're pugging the raid, now you know what to do at least to a certain degree. Hopefully it helped you out. Either way, we did the raid and we got 7 out of 7. I was aiming for 5 out of 7, so I'm really happy with this. And it took us 2 hours, by the way, so if you are raiding in a pug, try to save like 2.5 hours and give it some time. I know a lot of people leave after like an hour or something. It's a raid, so you probably want to give it like 2.5 hours. Some of the bosses will take a couple of tries, even like Lorgus Jet could take a couple of tries, so just have some patience. It's a raid after all. Either way, that's the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more Season of Discovery content. I'm trying to upload videos that will be helpful to you guys, so we've covered like gold farming, gold making, the crate video from yesterday now I think, or 2 days ago. So we have that video as well, and we're doing raid videos. Hopefully you're enjoying the content. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you either in the next video or on the stream. I'm streaming right now. Peace out.